Hashtag, they declared war. Until one human ship turned the tables and made them beg for peace. The message came through every communication channel in the galaxy at exactly the same moment. The Krellian Empire, rulers of half the known universe, had finally done what everyone feared they would do. They declared war on humanity. Captain Sarah Chan stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the holographic display show the same message playing on repeat. The Krellian High Commander appeared on screen, his 4 arms crossed over his chest, his 6 eyes glowing with confidence. Humans of Earth and all your colonies, the alien commander said, his voice translated into perfect English by the ship's computer. You have refused our generous offer to surrender and join our empire as servants. You have insulted our ambassadors. You have dared to say no to the mighty Krellian Empire. For this, you will be destroyed. Our fleet of 10,000 ships is already on its way to your worlds. You have 7 of your Earth days to reconsider. After that, we will show no mercy. The message ended, and the bridge fell silent. Sarah looked around at her crew. They were scared, and she couldn't blame them. The Krellians had conquered every species they had ever fought. Their technology was supposed to be centuries ahead of humanity's. Their ships were bigger, faster, and carried weapons that could crack planets open like eggs. Captain, her first officer, Lieutenant Commander James Park, spoke up. What are your orders? Sarah took a deep breath. The Defiance was just one ship, a medium-sized exploration vessel that had been retrofitted with weapons when tensions with the Krellians began to rise. They had been on routine patrol of the outer colonies when the declaration came through. Now, they were potentially all that stood between the Krellian fleet and the colony world of New Haven, home to 3 million humans. Set a course for the proximate jump point, Sarah ordered. We need to get back to Earth and... Captain, the communications officer interrupted. I'm picking up a distress signal from New Haven. They're saying Krellian advanced ships have already arrived. They're requesting immediate assistance. Sarah's blood ran cold. The Krellians weren't waiting 7 days. They were attacking now. How many ships? She asked. 3 destroyers, Captain. They're bombarding the colony's defense satellites. 3 destroyers. Each one was twice the size of the Defiance, and armed with plasma cannons that could turn her ship into molten metal in seconds. It was suicide to engage them, but 3 million people were counting on someone to help them. Change of plans, Sarah announced. Set course for New Haven. Maximum speed. Captain, James said quietly, so only she could hear. We can't take on 3 destroyers. It's impossible. I know, Sarah replied. But we're not going to engage them directly. I have an idea. As the Defiance changed course and accelerated toward New Haven, Sarah gathered her senior officers in the briefing room. She pulled up a holographic display of the star system, showing the positions of the Krellian ships and the colony. The Krellians are arrogant, she began. They think they've already won this war before it's even started. They're not expecting any real resistance, especially not from a single human ship. We're going to use that arrogance against them. She pointed to a dense asteroid field near the colony. The Krellians are staying in open space, using their long-range weapons to destroy the defense satellites. They feel safe there. But if we can lure them into the asteroid field, we can even the odds. How do we lure them? Asked the chief engineer, Maria Santos. Sarah smiled. By being bait. We're going to fly right at them, fire everything we've got, and then run for the asteroids like our lives depend on it. Which they will. That's insane, the weapons officer, Lieutenant Kim, said. They'll destroy us before we get halfway to the asteroids. Not if we do something they won't expect, Sarah said. She turned to Maria. How long would it take to modify our escape pods to broadcast false ship signatures? Maria's eyes widened as she understood. Maybe 2 hours. You want to launch the pods and make them look like multiple ships on their sensors. Exactly. The Krellians rely heavily on their advanced sensors. If suddenly one ship becomes 10, they'll hesitate. They'll have to divide their fire. It might buy us enough time to reach the asteroid field. The plan was dangerous, but it was better than doing nothing. The crew got to work immediately. Engineers modified the escape pods, programmers updated the ship's tactical systems, and weapons crews prepared for the fight of their lives. 2 hours later, the Defiance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Haven system. The 3 Krellian destroyers were exactly where the colony had reported them, methodically destroying the orbital defenses. The planet below showed signs of bombardment. Cities burning, smoke rising into the atmosphere. "They're targeting civilian centers," the sensor officer reported, disgust in her voice. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. The Krellians weren't just conquering. They were terrorizing. "All hands, battle stations," she announced over the ship's intercom. "Prepare to execute Operation David." She had named it after the ancient Earth story of David and Goliath, a small warrior defeating a giant through cleverness and courage. They would need both today. The Defiance accelerated toward the Krellian formation. At first, the alien ships didn't react. A single human vessel charging 3 destroyers was so absurd they probably thought it was a sensor glitch. "Range to target 500,000 kilometers, the tactical officer reported. "Launch the pods," Sarah ordered. 20 escape pods ejected from the Defiance, their modified transmitters immediately broadcasting false ship signatures. On the Krellian sensors, it would look like an entire fleet had just appeared out of nowhere. The reaction was immediate. The Krellian ships broke formation, their weapons swiveling to track the multiple targets. Energy beams lanced out through space, destroying several pods, but missing the Defiance. "Return fire," Sarah commanded. "Everything we've got." The Defiance's weapons weren't powerful enough to seriously damage a Krellian destroyer, but it didn't need to be. They just needed to be annoying. Missiles and energy beams peppered the lead destroyer shields, causing colorful ripples across its defensive screens. The Krellians responded with overwhelming force. Plasma beams thick as subway tunnels carved through space, vaporizing escape pods, and coming dangerously close to the Defiance. The ship shuddered as a near miss overloaded their port shields. "Shields at 60%, someone shouted. "Keep going," Sarah ordered. "Head for the asteroids." The asteroid field loomed ahead, a chaotic jumble of rocks ranging from pebbles to mountains. Flying through it at high speed was dangerous. Flying through it while being shot at by 3 alien warships was borderline suicidal. The Krellian commander must have realized what they were doing. The 3 destroyers accelerated, trying to cut them off before they reached the relative safety of the asteroids. More plasma beams filled space, and the Defiance danced between them like a leaf in a hurricane. "Shields at 30%. Hull breach on deck 7. Seal it off and keep going." They were almost there. The first asteroids were visible now, tumbling slowly through space. Just a few more seconds. A plasma beam clipped their starboard engine. The Defiance lurched violently, throwing crew members against walls and consoles. Warning alarms screamed as systems overloaded. "We've lost engine 2. Speed dropping." Sarah gripped her command chair as the ship spun. They weren't going to make it. The Krellians were lining up for the killing shot. She could see the lead destroyer's main cannon glowing as it charged. Then, suddenly, explosions bloomed across the destroyer's hull. Not from a Defiance. They hadn't fired. The explosions came from inside the Krellian ship. "What's happening?" James asked. Before anyone could answer, the lead Krellian destroyer broke apart. Its hull split open like a burst balloon, spilling air, debris, and bodies into space. The other 2 destroyers immediately ceased fire, spinning to face this new threat. But there was nothing there. No ship, no missiles, nothing on sensors. Just empty space. Then, the second destroyer exploded. This time, Sarah saw it clearly. The ship's shields flickered and died, then its hull simply came apart at the seams, as if every weld and joint had failed at once. The third destroyer tried to flee. Its engines flared to life, pushing it away from its dying sisters. It made it perhaps 1,000 kilometers before it too began to break apart. This time it was slower. The hull peeled away in sections, like someone was taking the ship apart piece by piece. In less than 5 minutes, 3 of the most powerful warships in the Krellian fleet had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris. "Captain," the sensor officer's voice was shaking. "I'm detecting something. I don't know what it is. The readings don't make sense." Sarah looked at the sensor display. There was definitely something there, right where the Krellian ships had been destroyed. But the sensors couldn't seem to lock onto it. One moment it registered as empty space, the next as a small asteroid, then as an energy field, then back to nothing. Visual sensors, she ordered. Put it on the main screen. The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge gasp. It was a ship, but like no ship anyone had ever seen. It seemed to be made of shadow and starlight, constantly shifting and changing. One moment it looked solid, the next it was translucent. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It's not possible, Maria whispered. Those sensor readings, that ship is phasing in and out of our dimension. The power requirements alone. Captain, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission. It's from that ship. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was human, calm, professional, and slightly amused. UES Defiance. This is Captain Alexandra Reed of the Dimensional Submarine Phantom. Sorry we're late to the party. We were waiting to see if you could handle it yourselves. Nice trick with the escape pods, by the way. Sarah found her voice. Captain Reed? I don't understand. What is that ship? How did you destroy 3 Krellian destroyers without firing a shot? All excellent questions that I'm not authorized to answer, Captain Reed replied. Let's just say humanity has been preparing for this day for a long time. The Krellians think they're the most advanced species in the galaxy. They're about to learn how wrong they are. But the technology, Maria said, forgetting protocol in her excitement. Dimensional phasing? That's centuries beyond anything we're supposed to have. Supposed to have? Yes, Captain Reed agreed. What we actually have is a different story. The Krellians aren't the only ones who can keep secrets. Now, Captain Chun, I believe you have damage to repair and colonists to reassure. We'll handle any more Krellian ships that show up. Wait, Sarah said. How many ships like yours does Earth have? There was a pause, then Captain Reed laughed. Captain Chun, what makes you think the Phantom is a ship? We're submarine. We sail through dimensions instead of water. And to answer your question enough, we have enough. The transmission ended, and the Phantom vanished from their screens. Not jumped to hyperspace, not cloaked, simply ceased to exist in normal space. Sarah sat back in her chair, trying to process what had just happened. Humanity had secret weapons, impossible weapons, and if they could destroy 3 Krellian destroyers so easily. Captain, James said quietly. What do we do now? Sarah stood up, straightening her uniform. We do our job. Get repair teams on that hull breach. Re-establish contact with New Haven Colony. And prepare a detailed report for Earth Command. She paused, then added with a small smile, make sure to include that the Krellian's 7-day deadline might be a bit optimistic. As the crew jumped into action, Sarah remained on the bridge, staring at the expanding debris field that had once been 3 invincible Krellian warships. The war had begun, but not the way anyone had expected. The Krellians had declared war on humanity, thinking they were dealing with primitives who had barely mastered space travel. They were about to discover that humans had been hiding their true capabilities, and that declaring war on humanity might have been the biggest mistake in their empire's history. The debris field sparkled in the light of New Haven's sun, a warning to any other Krellian ships that might approach. The hunters had become the hunted, and the galaxy would never be the same. But this was just the beginning. The Krellian fleet of 10,000 ships was still coming. The real test was yet to come. Sarah only hoped that Earth had more surprises like the Phantom waiting in the shadows. Because if they didn't, dimensional submarines or not, humanity was still facing the fight of its existence. The Defiance limped toward New Haven, battered but victorious. Behind them, invisible to all sensors, the Phantom continued its silent patrol, waiting, watching, ready to strike at any threat to humanity. The Krellians wanted war. They were about to find out what war with humans really meant. The Krellian High Command Chamber was in chaos. Supreme Admiral Zorax stood before the holographic display, his 6 eyes focused on the impossible data streaming across the screen. 3 of their finest destroyers gone, destroyed by something their sensors couldn't even properly detect. Play it again, Zorax commanded, his 4 arms gesturing at the tactical display. The recording played for the 20th time. 3 Krellian destroyers pursuing a single human ship. Then, nothing. The destroyers simply came apart, as if reality itself had rejected their existence. No weapons fire, no explosions until the ships were already dying. Just complete structural failure. This is impossible, Subcommander Threk insisted. Our ships are built to withstand direct hits from antimatter warheads. They don't just fall apart. And yet they did, Zorax replied coldly. The question is how. Another officer, Intelligence Chief Crawleys, stepped forward. Supreme Admiral, we've analyzed the sensor data. There's a brief dimensional fluctuation just before each ship was destroyed. It's as if something passed through our ships in a state of phase variance. Phase variance? Zorax turned all 6 eyes on the intelligence officer. You're suggesting the humans have mastered dimensional technology? I'm saying the data suggests something moved through dimensions to attack our ships, Crawleys clarified. Whether it's human technology or something else, I cannot say. Zorax was silent for a long moment. The Krellian Empire had conquered 43 species. They had never encountered technology they couldn't understand or overcome. But this was different. Double the fleet size, he finally ordered 20,000 ships and accelerate the timeline. We attack in 3 days, not 7. Sir, Threk ventured carefully. Perhaps we should reconsider. If the humans have weapons we don't understand, Zorax's primary arms grabbed Threk by the throat, lifting the smaller Krellian off the ground. Are you suggesting we show fear? That the Krellian Empire should retreat because of one anomaly? No. Supreme Admiral, Threk gasped. Zorax dropped him. Good. The humans got lucky. They had one trick, one surprise. But tricks won't save them from 20,000 ships. Prepare the fleet. We will drown them in fire and plasma until nothing remains but ash. Meanwhile, in a secret facility beneath Earth's Pacific Ocean, Admiral Rebecca Morrison stood in a room that officially didn't exist, surrounded by technology that humanity wasn't supposed to have for another 1,000 years. Report, she ordered. Dr. Chen Wei, head of Project Phantom, pulled up a holographic display. The field test was successful, Admiral. The Phantom performed beyond expectations. 3 Krellian destroyers neutralized with 0 human casualties. And the Krellians' response? Our intelligence suggests they're doubling their fleet size and moving up their timeline. 20,000 ships will arrive in approximately 70 hours. Morrison nodded. She had expected this. The Krellians were predictable in their arrogance. When faced with a setback, they always responded with overwhelming force. How many dimensional submarines are operational? She asked. 12, Admiral, with 6 more in final testing. Not enough, Morrison said. Not nearly enough for 20,000 ships. No, ma'am. But that's why we have Phase 2. Dr. Chen activated another display. This one showed Earth, but not as most people knew it. This Earth was surrounded by invisible layers of folded space-time, dimensional pockets where entire fleets could hide, waiting to strike. The dimensional artillery platforms? Morrison asked. All 400 are in position and charged. Each one can fire through dimensional barriers to hit targets anywhere in the solar system. The Krellians won't even know they're being shot at until their ships start exploding. Morrison allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for 50 years, ever since first contact with the Galactic Council had revealed the truth. The galaxy was full of predators, and humanity was seen as prey. But humans had always been good at turning the tables on predators. In Project Nightmare? She asked. Dr. Chen's expression became grim. Operational, but... Admiral, are you sure we want to use it? The psychological warfare protocols are extreme. The Krellians gave us 7 days, and then attacked immediately, Morrison replied. They're targeting civilians. They want to terrorize us into submission. I think it's time they learned what real fear feels like. 3 days later, the Krellian Grand Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. 20,000 ships, the largest fleet the Empire had ever assembled. Battleships, carriers, destroyers, and dreadnoughts filled space like a swarm of metal locusts. On the bridge of the flagship Dominator, Supreme Admiral Zorax surveyed his forces with satisfaction. All ships advance to attack positions. Begin bombardment of outer colonies in 1 hour. Sir, the sensor operator called out. I'm detecting ships near Earth. Configuration matches standard human vessels. How many? Approximately 500, sir. Zorax's mandibles clicked in what passed for Krellian laughter. 500 against 20,000? The humans are even more foolish than I thought. All ships prepare to... He never finished the sentence. Alarms suddenly screamed across the bridge as ships throughout the fleet began reporting impacts. But there was nothing on sensors. No missiles, no energy beams, nothing. What's happening? Zorax demanded. Ships are taking damage from nothing, sir. Whatever's hitting us isn't showing on any sensors. Through the viewports, Zorax could see his fleet being torn apart by invisible hands. Ships exploded, were cut in half, or simply crumpled like paper. The dimensional artillery was doing its work, firing from pockets of folded space where Krellian sensors couldn't detect them. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Zorax ordered. But how could they evade what they couldn't see? Then it got worse. Sir, the communications officer's voice was shaking. I'm receiving reports of something impossible. Ships are reporting that their crews are seeing things. Hallucinations. Their worst fears manifesting on their ships. Project Nightmare had activated, using dimensional technology to project psychological warfare directly into the minds of enemy crews. Every Krellian was suddenly living their worst nightmare while trying to fight a battle. On the Destroyer Conqueror, the crew saw their ship filling with water, impossible in space, but their minds believed it. They abandoned their posts, tried to escape drowning that wasn't real. On the carrier Victory's Pride, the crew saw themselves turning into their prey, experiencing every moment of pain they had inflicted on conquered species. They collapsed, screaming, clawing at transformations that existed only in their minds. Ship after ship fell to panic and madness. Crews turned on each other, abandoned their posts, or simply shut down in terror. And all the while, the invisible artillery kept firing, picking off ships with surgical precision. But the real horror was yet to come. Supreme Admiral, the sensor officer's voice cracked with fear. Something's coming out of dimensional space. Multiple contacts. They're everywhere. The human dimensional submarines emerged from folded space like sharks rising from dark water. Not just the 18 Dr. Chun had mentioned, but hundreds. The true scope of Project Phantom revealed at last. The Phantom itself materialized directly above the Dominator. Captain Alexandra Reed's voice echoed across all Krellian communication channels. Attention, Krellian Fleet. This is Captain Reed of Earth Defense Command. You came here to conquer and terrorize. You threatened our colonies and killed our people. Now you're going to learn why humans are the apex predators of our world. The dimensional submarines attacked with weapons that defied physics. They passed through Krellian shields like they weren't there. They fired torpedoes that existed in multiple dimensions at once, hitting the same target from a dozen different angles simultaneously. They teleported boarding parties directly onto Krellian bridges, where enhanced human soldiers in power armor made short work of confused alien crews. Supreme Admiral Zorax watched his grand fleet die around him. In less than an hour, 20,000 ships had been reduced to less than 5,000, and the number was dropping rapidly. His own bridge was in chaos, half the crew incapacitated by nightmare visions, the other half trying desperately to fight an enemy that refused to play by the rules of conventional warfare. Sir, his tactical officer managed to report. The humans, they're broadcasting something on all channels. Put it through, Zorax ordered, though he dreaded what he might hear. The voice that came through was Admiral Morrison's, calm and cold as space itself. Supreme Admiral Zorax. I am Admiral Rebecca Morrison of Earth Defense Command. You have two choices. Surrender unconditionally and order all Krellian forces to withdraw from human space, or watch the complete annihilation of your fleet. You have 5 minutes to decide. Zorax's 6 eyes blazed with fury. The Krellian Empire did not surrender. They had never surrendered. But As he watched another 1,000 ships vanish in fire and dimensional distortions, he realized the truth. This wasn't a battle. It was an execution. How? He asked, his voice transmitted back to the human admiral. How do you have this technology? Our intelligence said you had barely mastered fusion power. Morrison's laugh was without humor. Your intelligence was looking at what we wanted them to see. Did you really think a species that went from horses to spaceships in less than 2 centuries had suddenly stopped advancing? We've been preparing for 50 years, Supreme Admiral. Developing weapons specifically designed to counter galactic threats like you. You're not fighting the humans you thought you knew. You're fighting the humans we chose to become to survive in a hostile galaxy. Another 1,000 ships died as Morrison spoke. The dimensional submarines moved through the Krellian formation like ghosts, untouchable and lethal. The nightmare projections had reduced entire crews to gibbering madness. The invisible artillery continued its relentless bombardment. Zorax looked at his remaining forces. Less than 3,000 ships now, and dropping fast. His grand fleet, the pride of the Krellian Empire, was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that had turned warfare itself into something unrecognizable. Zorax's voice faltered. The words were poison to him, but the alternative was complete annihilation. I surrender. All Krellian forces, stand down. Stand down. The attacks stopped immediately. The dimensional submarines hung in space like predators, waiting to see if their prey would make a false move. The nightmare visions faded, leaving traumatized crews gasping for sanity. A wise choice. Morrison's voice came again. Here are our terms. The Krellian Empire will withdraw all forces from any system within 50 light-years of human space. You will pay reparations for the damage done to our colonies. You will sign a non-aggression pact that will last for 1,000 years. And you will carry a message to every other species in the galaxy. What message? Zorax asked, though he suspected he knew. That humanity is not prey. We are not servants. We are not victims waiting to be conquered. We're the species that turned nuclear weapons on ourselves and survived. We're the species that looked at the hostility of space and decided to go anyway. We're the species that keeps monsters as pets and turns predators into companions. And anyone who threatens us will learn what we learned long ago, that humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy when pushed to survive. Zorax closed all 6 eyes. His empire's expansion had ended here, broken against an enemy that had hidden its true nature until the perfect moment to strike. I agree to your terms. Good. You have 1 hour to begin your withdrawal. Any Krellian ship still in our space after that will be destroyed. And, Supreme Admiral, if your empire ever threatens humanity again, we won't stop at your fleet. We'll come for your homeworld. And we'll bring nightmares with us that will make today look like mercy. The transmission ended. Zorax turned to his broken, terrified crew. All ships, prepare for withdrawal. Send word to the homeworld. The war with humanity is over. As the shattered remnants of the Krellian Grand Fleet limped away, the human ships emerged fully from dimensional space. Not just the submarines, but massive dreadnoughts, carriers, and battle stations that had been hidden in folded dimensions around Earth. The true human defense fleet revealed at last. Captain Sarah Chun, watching from the repaired Defiance, shook her head in amazement. All this time we had this? Why keep it secret? Admiral Morrison, appearing on her communication screen, smiled grimly. Because, Captain, the galaxy needed to believe we were weak. It made potential enemies overconfident and potential allies less likely to see us as a threat. But now the secret's out. Humanity just announced itself as a galactic superpower. Everything changes from here. Indeed, across the galaxy, species watch the footage of the Krellian Empire's mighty fleet being torn apart by humans using impossible technology. The message was clear. Humanity was not what it seemed. And in the depths of space, dimensional submarines continued their silent patrols, waiting for the next threat to human space. Because the galaxy had just learned an important lesson. Humans were perfectly happy to be peaceful explorers and traders, but threaten them, and They would remind you why they were the apex predators of their world. The war had lasted less than a week. The peace would last much longer, because no one wanted to be the next species to learn what humans were really capable of when pushed to defend themselves. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Representatives from 47 species sat in stunned silence, watching the holographic replay for the third time. 20,000 Krellian ships reduced to less than 3,000 in under an hour. The mighty Krellian Empire forced to surrender by a species everyone had dismissed as primitives. Ambassador Vilek of the Altarian Republic was the first to speak. Her crystalline form chimed with nervousness as she addressed the chamber. The humans have been deceiving us all. For 50 years, they've pretended to be barely capable of interstellar travel while developing weapons that defy our understanding of physics. Deception is not a crime. Ambassador Chen-Lin of Earth responded calmly. She stood in the center of the chamber, facing the accusations with composure. We never lied about our capabilities. We simply chose not to advertise them. You possess dimensional weapons, shouted the Makari delegate, his tentacles writhing in agitation. Technology that could threaten every species in the galaxy. This council demands an explanation. Chun-Lin touched a control on her podium, and a new hologram appeared. It showed Earth 50 years ago, the day humanity made first contact with the galactic community. When we met you all, she began, humanity was celebrating. We thought we had found friends among the stars. Instead, we found a galaxy where might makes right, where smaller species are conquered or forced to pay tribute for protection, where the strong prey on the weak without consequence. The hologram changed, showing footage of various alien species being conquered by larger empires. Worlds burning, populations enslaved, entire cultures erased. We watched, Chun-Lin continued. We learned, and we realized that appearing weak was our best defense. So we hid our true capabilities while we prepared for the day someone would try to make us their next victim. But dimensional weapons, the Santori representative interjected, his voice melodious but concerned. Such technology could destabilize the entire galaxy. Could, Chen-Lin agreed, but won't. Humanity has no interest in conquest. We developed these weapons purely for defense. The only reason you're seeing them now is because the Krellians forced our hand. Ambassador Zorax of the Krellian Empire sat in his designated space, a shell of his former arrogant self. His 6 eyes remained downcast as he spoke. The human speaks truth. They offered us peace. They asked only to be left alone. We chose war, and we paid the price. But how? The scientific representative of the Quellans leaned forward, curiosity overcoming fear. Dimensional submarines? Weapons that fire through folded space. Psychological warfare on a massive scale? The energy requirements alone should be impossible. Chun-Lin smiled slightly. Humans have always been good at doing the impossible. We split the atom when everyone said it couldn't be done. We went to our moon with computers less powerful than a modern calculator. We turned the wolf, our natural predator, into our closest companion. Impossible is just a challenge to us. Show us, demanded the Vorthan ambassador, his mechanical voice echoing through the chamber. If humanity truly means no harm, share this technology with the council. No. Chun-Lin's response was immediate and firm. Our technology remains ours alone, but we offer something else instead. She touched her control again, and a new image appeared, a star chart showing human space and the surrounding systems. Humanity claims a protective sphere of 50 light-years around our territories, she announced. Any species within that sphere can request our protection. We will defend them as we defend ourselves, asking nothing in return except peaceful relations. The chamber erupted in discussion. The offer was unprecedented. The powerful species in the galaxy always demanded payment for protection. Resources, technology, even populations for their armies. Humanity was offering protection for free. What's the catch? The Kragan ambassador asked suspiciously. No one offers something for nothing. The catch, Chun-Lin replied, is that we expect peaceful behavior from those we protect. Attack another species, and our protection is withdrawn. use our protection to build aggressive forces, and we withdraw. We're offering a chance for smaller species to develop without fear, nothing more. And if someone attacks human-protected space? The Altarian ambassador asked. Chun-Lin's expression hardened. Then, they'll learn what the Krellians learned. We have thousands of dimensional submarines patrolling our space. We have weapons that can strike from dimensions your sensors can't even detect. We have technologies that turn space itself into our battlefield. Attack those under our protection, and face the same fate as the Krellian fleet. Meanwhile, on Earth, the reaction to the revealed technology was mixed. In a secure briefing room, President Martinez met with her top advisors. The public wants to know why we kept this secret, her chief of staff reported. Some are proud, others are angry about the deception. Dr. Chen Wei, who had been brought in to brief the civilian government, responded. We kept it secret because we had to. If the galaxy had known about our capabilities 50 years ago, every major power would have either tried to steal our technology or destroy us before we became a threat. And now? The president asked. Now we're too strong to attack directly. The Krellian defeat proved that. But we need to be careful. There will be those who see us as the new threat. Secretary of Defense Johnson nodded. Our intelligence suggests several species are already trying to develop countermeasures to our dimensional technology. The Vorthans in particular are pushing their scientists hard. Let them try, Dr. Chin said confidently. They're starting 50 years behind us, and we're not standing still. Project Hyperion is already in development. Hyperion, the president raised an eyebrow. If our current technology makes us untouchable in normal space, Hyperion will make us gods of dimensional space. Ships that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Weapons that can rewrite the laws of physics in localized areas. Shields that shun attacks in alternate realities. In 20 years, our technological advantage will be insurmountable. On the colony world of New Haven, Captain Sarah Chun stood in the rebuilt city square, watching children play around a memorial to those lost in the Krellian attack. A small Altarian child, one of the refugees who had fled to human space for protection, was playing with human children, their laughter mixing in the afternoon air. Captain Chun, a voice called. She turned to see a young officer approaching. Admiral Morrison wants to speak with you. Sarah activated her communicator, and Morrison's image appeared. Captain, I have a new assignment for you. The Defiance proved that conventional human ships can still play a vital role. I want you to take command of our new diplomatic fleet. Diplomatic fleet? Admiral? 12 ships, tasked with visiting species that have requested our protection. You'll assess their needs, establish defense protocols, and show them that humans can be trusted. Your actions during the Krellian attack proved you have the right temperament for this. Sarah looked back at the children playing. I accept, Admiral. When do I start? Immediately. The Altarians have requested a formal alliance. They're offering their crystal technology in exchange for protection. It could revolutionize our energy systems. Understood. I'll have a Defiance ready to depart in 6 hours. In deep space, beyond the borders of human territory, a secret meeting was taking place. Representatives from 3 of the galaxy's other major powers, the Vorthans, the Makari, and the Draconis hegemony, met aboard a cloaked station. The humans have upset the balance, the Vorthan representative stated. Their technology makes conquest obsolete. If they can strike from dimensions we can't access, traditional warfare becomes impossible. Then, we need non-traditional solutions, the Makari delegate suggested. Infiltration, sabotage, turning their allies against them. The Draconis representative, ancient and cunning, spoke carefully. Or we could try something the humans themselves demonstrated, patience. They waited 50 years to reveal their power. Perhaps we should wait, learn, and find their weakness. What weakness? The Vorthan asked. They control dimensional space. Every species has a weakness, the Draconis replied. The humans are protective of smaller species. They value individual lives over strategic advantage. They offer protection without demanding payment. These are the traits of a species that can be manipulated. Explain, the Makari demanded. Create a crisis that requires them to overextend their protection. Engineer conflicts that force them to choose between protecting different species. Make their compassion a liability. The humans are powerful, but they're not omnipotent. Spread them thin enough, and cracks will appear. The three representatives exchanged glances. It was a long-term plan, requiring patience and subtlety. But it was better than facing dimensional weapons head-on. Back on Earth, in the depths of the Pacific facility, Admiral Morrison reviewed reports from across human space. The transition from hidden power to galactic superpower was proceeding smoothly, but she knew challenges lay ahead. Admiral, her aide, entered the room. We've intercepted communications suggesting some species are planning to test our resolve. Morrison wasn't surprised. Let them test. We've shown our stick. Now it's time to show our carrot. Increase patrols in protected space. Make sure any species under our protection feels safe. And accelerate the cultural exchange programs. Cultural exchange? The best way to prevent conflict is to make friends. Invite their students to our universities. Share our art and music. Show them that humans are more than our weapons. We're a species that values life, creativity, and growth. Make them want to be our friends rather than forcing them to fear being our enemies. As days passed, the galaxy slowly adjusted to the new reality. Ships bearing the Earth Defense Command insignia became common sights in systems that had requested protection. Human traders, no longer needing to hide their origins, expanded their routes. Cultural exchanges flourished as species realized humans were eager to learn about other cultures. But the most significant change was in how conflicts were resolved. When the Kethri Empire threatened to invade their smaller neighbor, the Relon Federation, a single human-dimensional submarine appeared in the Kethri capital system. It didn't fire a shot. It simply existed, phasing in and out of reality, a silent reminder of what had happened to the Krellians. The Kethri withdrew their fleet and opened diplomatic negotiations instead. Captain Alexandra Reed, commanding the submarine Phantom, smiled as she watched the Kethri fleet retreat. Another war prevented without firing a shot. I could get used to this. Her first officer nodded. It won't always be this easy. Eventually, someone will test us for real. Then, we'll be ready, Reed replied. We've got advantages beyond our technology. Humans are adaptable, creative, and we never give up. The galaxy wanted to see what we're made of. Now they know. In the Galactic Council, Ambassador Chenlin concluded her address to the assembled species. Humanity extends an open hand to all who seek peace and friendship. We have no desire to rule or conquer. We simply want to explore, learn, and grow alongside our galactic neighbors. But to those who would threaten us or those we protect, remember this. We are the species that weaponized splitting the atom within years of discovering it. We went from powered flight to moon landing in less than a century. We turned dimensional theory into practical weapons in 50 years. Imagine what we'll create in the next 50. The message was clear. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage not as conquerors but as protectors. Not as rulers but as partners. They offered friendship to those who wanted it and protection to those who needed it. But they also served as a warning to those who confuse kindness with weakness. The human era had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. As the council session ended, representatives returned to their worlds with much to consider. Some began drafting alliance proposals. Others started military research programs. A few simply breathed easier, knowing that for the first time in galactic history, a superpower had emerged that seemed more interested in protecting the weak than exploiting them. But in the shadows, plans were already in motion. The Draconis hegemony began recruiting allies for their long-term strategy. The Vorthans accelerated their dimensional research. The Makari started identifying potential crisis points that could be exploited. The humans had won their first challenge decisively. But the game was far from over. In a galaxy of predators, even the apex predator had to stay vigilant. And humanity was about to learn that being powerful made you a target in ways that being weak never did. The stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the drama below. But for the first time in eons, they witnessed something new, a species that had turned fear into strength, deception into protection, and weakness into the ultimate weapon. Humanity had declared itself, and the universe would have to adapt to their presence. The only question now was whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity would become next. 5 years had passed since the Krellian defeat. The galaxy had adapted to humanity's new role as protector of the weak, but tensions simmered beneath the surface. In the Draconis hegemony's capital world, ancient minds plotted while patience grew thin. Supreme Orchestrator Vexai studied the holographic display showing human protection zones. What had started as a 50 light-year sphere had expanded as more species requested protection. Nearly a quarter of the galaxy's smaller civilizations now flew the Earth Defense Command banner alongside their own. They spread themselves thin, his advisor, Esicator, observed. 43 species under protection, hundreds of ships patrolling vast territories. Even their dimensional technology has limits. Yes, Vexai agreed, his scaled lips pulling back in what might have been a smile. Time to test those limits. Begin Operation Cascade. Across the galaxy, carefully orchestrated events began to unfold. On the agricultural world of Harvest Prime, a dispute over water rights between two protected species, the Rillan and the Thex, suddenly escalated. Ancient grievances, carefully inflamed by Draconis agents, erupted into violence. In the Outer Veil, pirates using stolen Vorthan technology began raiding human-protected shipping lanes, always striking multiple locations simultaneously. Near the galactic core, a plague of suspicious origin spread through 3 protected systems, requiring immediate humanitarian aid. Each crisis alone was manageable. Together, they stretched human resources to the breaking point. Captain Sarah Chun, now commanding the diplomatic flagship Unity, received priority alerts from 3 different sectors. Her holographic display looked like a war zone, red markers indicating crises across human-protected space. Captain, her tactical officer reported, we're receiving distress calls from 7 different systems. The Rillanthex conflict is escalating toward full war. Pirates hit 3 convoys in the last hour. And the plague in the Centerpoint systems is spreading faster than medical ships can respond. Sarah's mind raced. The Unity carried dimensional technology, but it could only be in one place at a time. Contact Admiral Morrison. Tell her we need everything available. And give me Ambassador Chun-Lin. Admiral Morrison's situation room on Earth was controlled chaos. Officers coordinated responses to dozens of simultaneous crises, while dimensional submarines were rapidly deployed from their hidden berths. It's too convenient, Morrison told her staff. Multiple crises, all requiring immediate response, all in different sectors. Someone's testing us. The Draconis? Her intelligence chief suggested. They have the patience and resources for this kind of operation. Probably, but we can't prove it. And, right now, we need to respond before people die. She turned to the holographic display. Deploy everything. Every submarine, every conventional ship, every medical vessel. And activate the reserve protocols. Admiral, someone called out. If we deploy everything, Earth itself will be vulnerable. Morrison's expression was grim. That might be exactly what they want. But we gave our word to protect these species. Keep the planetary defenses active, and hope our enemies aren't that bold. In the Rillan system, the situation deteriorated rapidly. What had started as a water dispute had exploded into orbital bombardments. Rillan and Thex ships, both supposedly under human protection, fired on each other with desperate fury. The dimensional submarine Spectre materialized between the 2 fleets. Captain Marcus Webb immediately broadcast on all channels. This is Earth Defense Command. All ships will cease fire immediately or face the consequences. They poisoned our water. The Rillan commander screamed across the comm, thousands are dead. We demand justice. They attack us for their own failures. The Thex representative responded. Their poor management caused the contamination, not us. Webb realized this wasn't just about water. Someone had engineered this conflict, pushing both sides past the point of reason. But first, he had to stop the shooting. I'm implementing Protocol 7, Webb announced to his crew. Prepare for dimensional barrier deployment. The Spectre's exotic technology activated. Reality itself seemed to ripple as a dimensional barrier materialized between the two fleets. Weapons fire from both sides simply ceased to exist when it hit the barrier, shunted into alternate dimensions where it could harm no one. Now, Webb broadcast, his voice carrying the authority of Earth's protection. You will talk. Unity is en route with mediators. Until they arrive, any ship that powers weapons will be disabled. Earth's protection comes with responsibilities. You both agreed to peaceful resolution of conflicts. Honor that agreement, or lose our protection forever. Meanwhile, in the pirate-infested sectors, dimensional submarines played a deadly game of cat and mouse with raiders who seemed to know exactly when and where to strike to avoid interception. Captain Alexandra Reed commanded a wolf pack of 3 submarines hunting the pirates. The Phantom, Wraith, and Shadow moved through dimensional space like predators stalking prey. They're using quantum encryption, her science officer reported. Someone's feeding them real-time intelligence on our patrol patterns. Reed's eyes narrowed. Then, we changed the game. All ships execute pattern Omega. We're going to make them think we're everywhere at once. The 3 submarines began a complex dance through dimensions, appearing and disappearing rapidly across the sector. To enemy sensors, it would look like dozens of ships patrolling simultaneously. The psychological effect was immediate. Pirate raids dropped by 80% as raiders became too paranoid to attack. In the plague-stricken systems, human medical ships worked desperately to contain the outbreak. Dr. Maria Santos, who had once been the Defiance's engineer, now commanded the hospital ship Mercy. She studied the plague's genetic structure with growing alarm. This isn't natural, she told her team. The genetic markers are too perfect, too targeted. This was engineered to affect these specific species while leaving others untouched. Biological warfare? Her assistant asked, horrified. Biological testing, Maria corrected. Someone wanted to see how we'd respond to a medical crisis. How thin we'd spread our resources. She turned to the communications officer. Give me a direct line to Earth. They need to know this is part of something bigger. The Draconis leadership watched the human response with interest. In their hidden command center, data streams showed human ships racing from crisis to crisis, stretching their dimensional technology to its limits. They're managing, SEK Tor observed with grudging respect. Barely, but they're managing. Phase 2, Vexhai ordered. Show them the price of their compassion. New crises erupted. A protected species' sun showed signs of artificial destabilization. 2 more conflicts flared between previously peaceful neighbors. Critical infrastructure failed across multiple systems simultaneously. And then the masterstroke. Earth's own solar system detected an incoming asteroid on a collision course, moving at impossible speeds. It would arrive in less than 6 hours. Admiral Morrison received the news with a sinking heart. Every ship was deployed across the galaxy. Earth's defenses were strong, but they'd never been tested against a relativistic asteroid attack. Recall the nearest submarines, she ordered. How many can make it back in time? 3, maybe 4, came the reply. Not enough to guarantee interception. Morrison made a decision that would define humanity's role in the galaxy. Don't recall them. Earth's defenses will have to hold. We don't abandon those under our protection. The news of Earth's danger spread across protected space within minutes. And then something unexpected happened. The Rillan and Thex, still separated by Captain Webb's dimensional barrier, sent a joint message. Earth protected us when we couldn't protect ourselves. Our fleets are yours. From the Altarian Republic came a transmission. Our crystal technology is at your disposal. We're sending everything we have. Species after species responded. Ships, technology, resources, all offered freely to defend the world that had defended them. In 5 years, humanity had earned something more powerful than fear. Loyalty. Captain Sarah Chun, aboard Unity, coordinated the response. All non-human ships converge on Earth. We're going to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten our home. The asteroid streaked through space, accelerated by engines hidden in its core. On Earth, defensive satellites powered up while dimensional artillery prepared to fire. But the Real defense came from an unexpected source. A fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen assembled around Earth. Altarian crystal ships that could focus energy like living lenses. Santori vessels that sang reality into different shapes. Quellan science ships with experimental shields. Even a small contingent of Krellian vessels, sent by Zorax himself with a simple message. Honor demands we repay our debt. The Draconis agents controlling the asteroid watched in disbelief as their weapon faced not just human defenses, but a united fleet of species that had chosen to stand together. They were supposed to be alone, Sikator protested. Overwhelmed and vulnerable, Vexai watched the display with all four eyes. We miscalculated. Humans don't just protect. They inspire. They transform those they protect into allies. The asteroid entered Earth's outer system. Immediately, it faced a barrage unlike anything in galactic history. Altarian crystal beams sliced through its hide. Santori harmonics shattered its internal structure. Human dimensional artillery fired from hidden positions, each shot precisely calculated. But the killing blow came from an unexpected source. The Phantom, Wraith, and Shadow, the three submarines Captain Reed commanded, hadn't returned to Earth. Instead, they'd done something thought impossible. They'd linked their dimensional drives and jumped the entire asteroid into alternate space, removing it from reality entirely. The effort burned out their drives, leaving them stranded in normal space. But the threat was over. Earth was safe, and the galaxy had witnessed something new. Species working together not from fear or coercion, but from genuine gratitude and respect. Admiral Morrison surveyed the aftermath. Dozens of crises still needed attention, but reinforcements were arriving from every protected species. The attempts to overwhelm humanity had instead created a coalition. "Give me a channel to the Draconis hegemony," she ordered. When Vexai's image appeared, she spoke calmly but firmly. "We know this was your operation. We have proof of your agent's involvement in at least 7 manufacture crises. Under normal circumstances, this would be an act of war." Vexai remained silent, waiting. "But we're not interested in war," Morrison continued. "We're interested in peace. So here's what's going to happen. The Draconis hegemony will pay reparations to all affected species. You will sign the same non-aggression pact the Krellians signed, and you will contribute resources to help defend protected space, since you've shown such interest in testing our defenses." "And if we refuse?" Vexai asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "Then you'll discover that we've been holding back. The dimensional submarines you've seen? There are patrol boats. The weapons we've used? There are non-lethal options. Push us to war, and you'll face technologies that make dimensional phase shifts look like stone axes. We developed doomsday weapons, Supreme Orchestrator. We just chose not to use them. Don't make us reconsider that choice." The Draconis leader was silent for a long moment. Then, surprising everyone, he laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "You humans are more dangerous than I thought. Not because of your weapons, but because of what you represent. Very well. We accept your terms." As the crisis ended, humanity and its allies began rebuilding. The coordinated attacks had damaged infrastructure and cost lives, but they had also forged something stronger than any weapon. A true alliance based on mutual respect and protection. Captain Sarah Chun stood on Unity's bridge, watching repair ships from a dozen species work together. Her communications officer approached with a message. "Captain, we're receiving thanks from every protected system. They're calling this the birth of the coalition. They want to formalize the alliance, make it permanent." Sarah smiled. Humanity started this journey hiding in the shadows, afraid of the galaxy's predators. Now look at us, not conquerors but protectors. Not alone, but surrounded by friends. In the depths of space, dimensional submarines resumed their patrols. But now they were joined by allied ships, all working together to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The galaxy had thrown its worst at humanity, and humanity had responded by building something better. The strong still existed, but they could no longer prey on the weak with impunity. Because the weak had protectors now, and Those protectors had proven they would stand against any threat, face any challenge, and pay any price to keep their word. Humanity had changed the rules of galactic civilization, and the game would never be the same again. 10 years after the Krellian defeat, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The coalition of protected worlds had grown from an emergency alliance into the dominant peacekeeping force in known space. At its heart was Earth, no longer hiding its strength, but wielding it with wisdom earned through trial. Admiral Rebecca Morrison, now bearing the title of Supreme Commander of Coalition Forces, stood in the newly constructed Unity Station orbiting Earth. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see ships from 50 different species conducting joint training exercises. Altarian crystal vessels danced alongside human dimensional submarines, while Santori harmonic cruisers practiced formation, flying with reformed Krellian destroyers. "Ma'am," her aide approached, "the Galactic Council is ready for your address." Morrison nodded. Today would mark a historic moment. The formal dissolution of the old Galactic Council and its replacement with something entirely new. In the council chambers, representatives from every known species had gathered. The old hierarchical seating, which had placed powerful species above weaker ones, had been replaced with a circular arrangement where all sat as equals. Morrison took the central podium, her image broadcast to trillions across the galaxy. 10 years ago, the Krellian Empire declared war on humanity. They expected an easy victory against what they saw as a primitive species. Instead, their defeat marked the beginning of a new era. She paused, looking around the chamber. Today, we formally established the Galactic Coalition, based not on might-making right, but on the principle that every sapient species has the right to peace, prosperity, and self-determination. The document she presented was revolutionary. Instead of the old system where powerful species dominated weaker ones, the Coalition Charter established universal rights and responsibilities. Every species would contribute according to their abilities and receive protection according to their needs. But protection is no longer just humanity's burden, Morrison continued. The Coalition Defense Force will include ships and personnel from every member species. The dimensional technology that once gave humanity an insurmountable advantage will be shared carefully and gradually with those who prove themselves committed to peace. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Humanity was offering to share the very technology that made them invincible. It was unprecedented. From her seat, Ambassador Chen-Lin of Earth rose to elaborate. "We will establish training academies on 6 worlds, including Earth. Species that contribute to the Coalition's peaceful mission will have their personnel trained in dimensional theory and technology. Not the weapons. Those will remain under strict control, but the underlying science that could revolutionize transportation, communication, and exploration." Supreme Orchestrator Vexhai of the Draconis Hegemony stood next. 5 years of force cooperation had changed him. The Draconis support this proposal. "We have learned that strength shared is strength multiplied. Our attempts to divide and conquer only united our supposed enemies against us. Perhaps it is time to try unity ourselves." One by one, species representatives stood to voice their support. Even former enemies found common ground in the promise of shared prosperity and protection. But the real test of the new coalition came from an unexpected source. 3 days after the charter signing, every monitoring station in the galaxy detected the same thing: a massive object entering the galaxy from intergalactic space. It was a ship, but of a design and size that dwarfed anything in known space. The vessel was the size of a small moon, and it moved with purpose toward the galactic core. Emergency sessions convened across Coalition space. The ship broadcasted no signals, responded to no communications. It simply moved forward, and anything in its path was swept aside by energy fields that defied analysis. Captain Alexandra Reed, now commanding the Coalition's first response fleet, led the initial intercept mission. Her task force included ships from 12 species, a testament to how far cooperation had come. Unidentified vessel, she broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Captain Reed of the Galactic Coalition. Please respond and state your intentions. Silence. The massive ship continued its inexorable advance. When it reached the first inhabited system in its path, the coalition held its breath. The ship paused at the system's edge, and then something extraordinary happened. Smaller vessels, each still larger than any coalition ship, emerged from the behemoth and began scanning the planets. "They're analyzing us," reported the Altarian science officer aboard Reed's flagship. "Energy patterns suggest they're looking for something specific." Then, finally, a communication. The voice that echoed across every channel was deep, multi-layered, and spoke in perfect galactic standard despite that being impossible for a ship from outside the galaxy. "We are the architects. We seeded life in this galaxy eons ago. We have returned to evaluate our experiment. Initial observations indicate unexpected development. Explain the nature of your coalition." In Unity Station, emergency meetings erupted. Humanity and its allies faced something beyond even their dimensional technology. The beings that had created life in their galaxy had returned to judge their creation. Morrison took charge of the response. "Architects, I am Admiral Morrison of the Galactic Coalition. We are an alliance of species dedicated to mutual protection and peaceful development. We welcome your return and offer peaceful dialogue." The response was immediate. "Your coalition is an anomaly. Our models predicted that by this time, one or two species would have achieved dominance through conquest. Instead, we find cooperation led by a species that hides strength behind protection. Explain humanity's role." Molison Shuzonisti. She explained humanity's history, their late arrival on the galactic stage, their decision to hide their true capabilities, the Krellian War that forced them to reveal their strength, and their choice to use that strength to protect rather than conquer. "Interesting," the architects responded. "You possess dimensional manipulation technology. Our scans indicate you could have conquered this galaxy with ease. Why did you choose protection over dominion?" "Because," Morrison replied, "humans learned early that strength without wisdom leads to destruction. We nearly destroyed our own world multiple times before achieving spaceflight. When we found other species making the same mistakes on a galactic scale, we chose to break the cycle." The architect's ship was silent for long minutes. Coalition forces remained at highest alert, knowing that these beings possessed technology that made even dimensional weapons seem primitive. Finally, the architect spoke again. "We must evaluate directly. Prepare a representative group from your coalition. Include humans and those they protect. We will examine whether this cooperation is genuine or merely disguised dominance." A joint team was quickly assembled. Admiral Morrison and Ambassador Chun Lin represented humanity. Captain Sarah Chun, whose actions during the first Krellian attack had become legendary, was selected for her experience with first contact situations. They were joined by representatives from the Altarians, Krellians, Draconis, and several smaller protected species. The team was transported aboard the architect vessel by means that defied understanding. One moment they were on their shuttle, the next they stood in a chamber that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The beings they faced were difficult to perceive clearly, as if their forms shifted between realities. "We are disappointed," the lead architect announced without preamble. "Our experiment was designed to produce a dominant species that would prepare the galaxy for integration into the greater cosmic community. Instead, we find cooperation that inhibits the strong and coddles the weak." With respect, Sarah Chun stepped forward, surprising everyone with her boldness. "Your experiment succeeded, just not how you expected. Humanity didn't dominate through conquest because we learned something your models didn't predict. That diversity is strength." "Explain," the architect commanded. Sarah gestured to her companions. "The Altarians taught us about energy manipulation we never would have discovered alone. The Centauri showed us how sound could reshape reality. Even the Krellians, our former enemies, have contributed tactical knowledge that made the coalition stronger. Each species brings unique perspectives and abilities. Together, we're stronger than any single dominant species could ever be." The small ones, another architect indicated the representatives from protected species. They contribute nothing. They only consume resources. Wrong. Morrison interjected firmly. The Bellari, one of our smallest protected species, developed a mathematical theorem that improved our dimensional drive efficiency by 30%. They couldn't build the drives themselves, but their unique neural structure let them see patterns we missed. The Yeni, who have no military capability at all, created agricultural techniques that ended famine on 12 worlds. Every species contributes according to their abilities. The architects conferred among themselves in ways that transcended normal communication. The coalition representatives waited, knowing the fate of their galaxy hung in the balance. "Show us," the lead architect finally commanded. "We will test your coalition. If you truly represent cooperative strength rather than hidden dominance, you will pass. If not, we will reset the experiment." The meaning of reset was horrifyingly clear. The architects would wipe the galaxy clean and start over. The test began immediately. The architect's ship created a series of challenges designed to tear the coalition apart. They manifested threats that required specific species abilities to counter, but made it seem like sacrificing weaker members would make victory easier. First came an energy plague that only Altarian crystal technology could cure, but using it would drain their ship's defenses. Without hesitation, the Altarians depleted their entire fleet's power reserves to save infected worlds, trusting other coalition members to protect them while they recharged. Next, the architects created spatial anomalies that threatened to tear apart star systems. Human dimensional submarines could stop them, but only by revealing the classified locations of their hidden bases. Humanity exposed every secret installation to save species that, just 10 years ago, might have been enemies. Challenge after challenge tested whether the coalition would choose self-interest over mutual protection. Each time, species put themselves at risk to save others, even former enemies. The final test was the cruelest. The architects created a scenario where the coalition had to choose between saving Earth or saving a collection of minor species' homeworlds. The mathematics were simple. Earth's destruction would cripple the coalition, while losing the minor worlds would be survivable. Morrison didn't hesitate. All ships protect the threatened worlds. Earth's defenses will hold. You would risk your homeworld for species that offer you little? The architect asked. They offer us something beyond measure, Morrison replied. They offer us the chance to be better than conquerors, to be protectors, to prove that strength can lift others up instead of crushing them down. The coalition fleet moved as one, racing to defend the threatened worlds while Earth stood alone against the architect-created danger. But Earth wasn't truly alone. Dimensional technology linked every coalition ship to Earth's defense grid, creating a distributed shield that protected all worlds simultaneously. The test ended as suddenly as it began. The threats vanished, revealed as elaborate simulations. No real damage had been done, but the choices had been real. The architects were silent for a long moment. Then, something unprecedented happened. They laughed, a sound like cosmic wind chimes. "We were wrong," the lead architect admitted. "Our models were based on our own species' development through conquest and dominance. We never considered that cooperation could create something stronger than empire. You have passed, but more than that, you have taught us something new." The chamber transformed, becoming less alien and more welcoming. The architects' forms solidified into something the coalition representatives could perceive more clearly. Beings of light and thought, ancient beyond measure, but still capable of learning. The Galactic Coalition will be recognized in the greater cosmic community, the architect announced. More than that, you'll be teachers. Other galaxies struggle with the same cycles of conquest and destruction. Your model of protection and cooperation could transform the universe itself. But first, another architect added, a gift. You have dimensional technology, but you use it crudely. Let us show you its true potential. Knowledge flowed into the minds of the coalition representatives. Not just technological knowledge, but philosophical understanding of how dimensions worked, how reality could be shaped by while guided by wisdom. It would take years to fully understand, but the potential was staggering. Use it wisely, the lead architect warned. Power without wisdom destroyed countless civilizations. But power guided by the principles you've shown, protection, cooperation, sacrifice for others, could elevate you beyond anything we imagined. The coalition team returned to their ships with minds reeling from new knowledge. The architect vessel remained in the galaxy, no longer a threat, but a bridge to the greater universe beyond. In the weeks that followed, the Galactic Coalition transformed again. The knowledge shared by the architects didn't just improve technology. It deepened understanding between species. Dimensional theory became a universal language that helped species understand each other on fundamental levels. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the observation deck of the newly christened Coalition flagship, Harmony. Around her, officers from 20 species worked together with an ease that would have been impossible just years before. Captain, her Krellian tactical officer reported, we're receiving reports from the frontier. 3 new species have requested coalition membership, and 2 others want to establish trade relations. Sarah smiled. Process them all according to standard protocols. And make sure they understand. Joining the coalition means accepting both its benefits and responsibilities. Through the viewport, she could see the architect's ship in the distance, a constant reminder of how far they'd come. Humanity had started as a species hiding in the shadows, afraid of the galaxy's predators. Now they stood at the center of an alliance that spanned the galaxy and reached beyond. But the most important change wasn't in technology or territory. It was in the fundamental understanding that strength wasn't about the ability to destroy, but the willingness to protect. That cooperation could achieve what conquest never could. That every species, no matter how small or weak, had something valuable to contribute. The Krellians had declared war on humanity, expecting to face primitives. Instead, they had triggered a revolution that transformed the galaxy. The weak became protected. The protected became allies. And, together, they became something greater than any empire. As Sarah watched the stars, she knew challenges remained. The universe was vast, and not every species would embrace the coalition's ideals. But humanity and its allies had proven something important, that there was another way, a better way. And they would continue to prove it, one protected world at a time, one alliance at a time, until the very stars themselves sang with the harmony of species working together for the good of all. The war that began with a declaration of conquest had ended with a declaration of protection. And in that transformation, the galaxy had found its future,